There's a saying that actions speak louder than words, and I believe that is true. President Biden has campaigned and now runs his presidency based on unity and peace. But his policies, both that he's enacted and proposed, show just the opposite to many Americans. We're going to get into some of the State of the Union that just happened and some of the things that are going on in and around his presidency. Thanks for choosing Church Public. Let's get started. Well, the State of the Union was last night. I know some of you probably watched it. Others of you took a nap through it. It was really long. My favorite comments on it was from Cruz that was boring but radical. It was a very strange environment to sit in, and because I think about this, because I read about this, because I research about this constantly, I have some idea of what is going on in policy. And many of the things, the claims that he said were either not true or, again, not uniting. And if you're running on something like uniting everybody, you would think that both the things that you say and the actions that you do would be uniting principles. Time and time again, both in many of his policies, both proposed and enacted, have not been the case. And then also last night, many of the things that were called upon were just not proposals of unity. They just weren't. He would say things that unity, but it really was not part of the program. And beyond that, there is something to be said about his demeanor. I can give you that. He's not brash and abrasive as a certain former president was. And he is not mean. He does not bully people. Though that's a point of contention. It depends, because I know people in my life that are very passive aggressive, and while they don't seem to sound bullying, what they're saying is actually do what I say or else. But they just say it in a nicer way. You probably know some passive aggressive people like that too. Anyway, in contrast, of course, he's a vastly different person than the previous president. And I understand that. And to some people, that's all. That's all they wanted. All they wanted was a break from that personality and the policies that were in place, the decisions that were made, the policies that were promoted and provided during that administration had nothing to do with their decision to choose someone that just had a different personality. And I can't wrong you for that. But at the same time, if that is your only choice, whether a person sounds nice, then when you get the actual policies and proposals and some of these bills that have gone through and are going through, again, I read a couple of days ago, a person who claimed to be a Christian was really frustrated at Biden because he didn't live up to his word in doing what he said he would do, specifically in the sphere of pro-life. And it doesn't surprise me at all, because I read about his policies, and he had a long 40-plus year career in politics prior to running for president this time. And it was pretty clear the way that he was going to go in his policy choices if you spent 5 minutes looking at what he had done previously. Again, people can change. People can do something different. Okay. But to me, this whole thing has seemed like the high school ASB president who stands up and says, I'm going to give you, free Slurpees every day, and you're going to have candy bars free out of the vending machine every day, and all your wildest dreams are going to come true. And everybody's like, yeah, I'm voting for that. And yet, if any of you have been through high school and have been through speeches like that, as some of us have, that it's not real, right? It's just these pipe dreams and this utopia. And we talked about that on a previous episode, that like this whole administration is based on building this utopia, this pipe dream that doesn't actually exist, and in reality cannot ever exist. It's impossible. We can't get to that place. And one of the things that they want to build, I talked about this a couple of times ago, that they want to build a heaven on earth. And sadly, it's not possible to build a heaven on earth. We do have a great hope in Jesus Christ that we will have a new heaven and a new earth when God fulfills the promise of his kingdom. But to manufacture that through political means is just literally impossible, physically, spiritually, at all. Anyway, back to the State of the Union. My point I was making is that because he is a different personality, some people just read that like non-verbally and verbally, right? You read that as, well, he must be saying true things. He must be saying good things. And again, the things sound good: free college for everybody and free everything. Who doesn't want that? I want free everything. Sure. Yes. Is that possible? No, but because he sounds nice and he talks nice, people, I guess, sign on to that. I'm trying to see both sides, right? At any rate, I struggle through it, from a policy perspective, but also just from an intelligibility perspective. He seems to be really, really old. And I don't say that in a demeaning way. Like, it's very sad that people put him up to this, or he thought he could do this, or there was no one in his life who said, hey, maybe it's not the time to do this. He struggled with words and saying sentences, even though it was clear he was reading the teleprompter most of the time. And I understand that. I mean, I've spent time reading a teleprompter. I have notes. I go back and forth between my notes. I say wrong words. I get that. However, there was a lot of struggle even while reading. And like, one of my favorites was, this was a quote, universal. This is a quote, as best as I could transcribe it. Quote, universal public schools and college aid opened wide the doors of opportunities. Scientific breakthroughs took us to the moon. Now we are on Mars. Discovering vaccines gave us the internet and so much more. End quote. No idea what that means. But I wrote it down word for word because I didn't want to get it wrong, because I don't understand what it means. But anyway, there were many moments like that, and that's it. Again, is sad to me. I don't even want to make fun of him. I think it's sad that they're allowing him to move through this space and do this thing. But anyway, so I think the way he talks, that he's kind of like an old grandpa, I think that just puts people at ease, in difference to the previous president, who was in your face and loud and aggressive, and people didn't like that. So even if the previous president did policies that helped lots of people and were very pro-life, the most pro-life president, I think, in history, in terms of policy decisions in the previous administration, the demeanor of the current president apparently assuages all of the policy that are bad. And so again, we're going to talk about these claims for unity. We're going to talk about these claims to peace, because I think this is an important point. And it's an important point as, again, we're trying to connect faith and culture. And if you haven't already, you can go to churchpublic.com. You can sign up for the podcast at iTunes. You can subscribe, give me a review if you want to. You can go to YouTube. It's Church Public, one word. You can search for the videos there. I think you'll get a little bit more video content, especially today. I'm going to show a couple of clips. So you may want to do that. And I'm going to keep giving you content as much as I can, and with the time that I'm able, because I want us to understand how to put a theological worldview, a view of the biblical realities of life, into our day-to-day, ins and outs of life and culture, and some of these kind of weird things that are happening in and around our lives, because it is coming, and these things will impact you regardless of where you are. Even if you don't feel like they impact you right now, they are going to impact you, and it's just a matter of time. And so I want you to be prepared, and I want you to, again, as Peter says, have an answer for the hope that you have. This is not just holding on to your faith like a security blanket. Faith is important and very necessary, hear me the right way, but you also need to have an answer. When someone pushes you about this and says, well, you're wrong, what are you going to say? Like, you have to have an answer for that. You can't just slink back and say, I guess you were right, like, about whatever the issue is. So let's talk about a couple of issues, because again, when the administration and others say we just need to unify around this, I don't understand that. Like, it legitimately is unintelligible for me. I'll give you an example. How do you find unity around abortion? One side says a woman has a right to choose to, whatever you want to call it, kill their unborn child, end the life of their unborn child. I might say murder your unborn child. So that's one side. And the other side says you shouldn't murder, period. or especially those that are defenseless and cannot help themselves, like an unborn child. So where is the compromise? Where's the unity in between those? Where's the middle ground? Only murder sometimes, only kill some children, only give women the right to choose sometimes, or if the woman really wants it. I legitimately cannot comprehend like where there's a middle ground in between those. Those are two just opposite sides. I'm not telling you what to do. You can choose whatever side you want, but you have to stand on a side of that. You can't say, yes, let's just compromise the view and we'll both go our separate ways. Like you have to choose a side on this and figure out where you are. You can get in line with Biden's policies. Again, this was the thing that some Christians I was reading about were frustrated because he said he was going to be pro-life, and yet through his career, and especially now, he has been completely pro-choice, and I would say anti-life. All of these decisions, there are plenty, and I've gone through a couple of them, so I'm not going to go through all of the policies right now, but you can read about them. They're very public and possible. And you either get in line with this policy, and I talked about the LA Times article the other day that said, basically abortion should be allowed with no limits ever, again, period. So you either get in line with that policy or you're not in his unity. So to me, that's what I hear when he talks. And that's what I start feeling like when you say unity, I think you mean agree with me and we'll have unity. And if you don't agree with me, then it's not unity. And so it's not peace. So it's war. I don't know what the opposite of not unity in this particular case is, but it's certainly not peace, because again, we're on opposite sides of this issue, and this is only one of the issues. Like there's so many issues here. He said, I mean, just to throw a couple more out there, like he discussed, there's so many of them. We'll choose gun control. He talked about gun control, and he talked about the 1994, I believe, assault weapons ban and how it worked, right? And actually, there is a lot of evidence that it actually didn't work. The not conservative news outlet ProPublica looked at it and said, quote, "We cannot credit the ban with any of the nation's recent drop in gun violence. The Department of Justice funded study concluded in 2004, so long ago." Then it continues, "Should it be renewed, the ban's effects on gun violence are likely to be small at best and perhaps too small for reliable measurement," unquote. So he talked about gun violence and gun control, and yet in that gun control, it didn't, he said that it worked. And the reality is, again, not conservative places have said, no, it didn't. That what you did in 1994 didn't do anything measurable. And so again, that's two sides of a coin of unity. Like, do you believe the Second Amendment is actually a Second Amendment, or do you not? And what is the middle of that? Again, you get to have some weapons, but not other weapons. And that's kind of what he says, though it gets really fuzzy because the claims are just kind of unintelligible. And he throws these things out there as if they were assumptions that everyone believes and underlies. And the reason we need to talk about these things is, again, wherever you stand on it, you can disagree with me, that's fine, but you have to choose a place that you stand on it. You have to choose a place that you stand on these things, because people are going to push you on these, and you have to decide, do you agree or do you not agree? Then do you agree that we have a right to defend ourselves? And the whole reason of the Second Amendment, if you've studied any of the founding fathers, and the point of writing it, and the point that they had to put it in, they felt very important, again, as the second thing they put in the Bill of Rights, was to give us the protection, not even really from one another, but from the government, because they had just come from a hostile government that said to them, no, you cannot do what you want to do. You cannot have the freedoms that you want to have. So the reason the weapons were necessary is because of government infringement, when the government did not do what they were supposed to do, and they didn't hold up their end of the bargain. And again, I don't think anybody wants to get to the place where we need to have that. However, to remove that safety valve at the end of this whole deal, then you literally have nothing to push back on. And keep in mind that every single law is a life and death law. Every single one, without question. Every single one. And we've seen that. I mean, it's obvious. We've seen that through random traffic stops where it becomes a life and death situation. We've seen that with random people coming to homes and with just questions and turning into life and death situations. Every single law can be a life and death situation. And so the escalation goes very quickly from there. And if there is no balancing of power, then the people will always lose. Hear that. If there's no balancing of power, the people will always lose. And what I mean to say is, if the government has all of the power, as many governments have throughout the course of history, then the government tells you what you can and cannot do. We're supposed to be a nation of self-government where we, the people, you, the people, self-govern, and the government protects your rights. So the point was, the government does not get involved in really even your day-to-day life and allows you the rights and freedoms to be able to use your own responsibility, your own duty, your own character to make good choices. If you get out of line of those good choices, then the government steps in and adjusts things and literally puts justice in place. But without that balance of power, then the government just tells you what you can and can't do, and that turns into autocracy or fascism or socialism or communism, which we'll talk about more in a moment. So those are again, there were so many things, and I could keep talking for a long time. So I want to land this plane a little bit, but he didn't talk about the border crisis. He cannot call it a border crisis, though. At one point, he accidentally called it a crisis a week ago. He did talk about immigration reform and giving dreamers citizenship. So instead of dealing with the now hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands of people pouring over the borders illegally, he wants to give the current illegal citizens citizenship, the illegal alien citizenship, say that the right way. He talked about the perils of the pandemic last year and his success in dealing with it, which is arguable, given that he didn't mention any of the Operation Warp Speed, any of the previous administration's accomplishments at all, or that I think I have a couple of things like the previous administration was giving 1 million vaccines a day before Biden took office, and the nationwide peak of cases was January 8th, which actually was before he even took office. So some of the things that he patted himself on the back for would have happened anyway, or were already in the process of happening. But again, splitting hairs. So he did not mention the Uyghurs in Xinjiang at all. I believe that is one of the biggest crimes against actual humanity that is occurring on the planet at the moment, in the way that the Chinese are persecuting this group of people simply because of who they are and their race and their religion. And he didn't talk about that. And of course, I don't think any Democrat maybe would ever talk about how the Christians are being persecuted in China more than ever before right now as well, too, which I'm going to talk about more on a later episode, but we'll save that for another day. He didn't mention Ukraine. Ukraine is a really big thing that's going on right now. I haven't talked about it at all, but if you've been watching any of the other news, the Russians in the military have been stacking up their forces on the border of Ukraine for the past several weeks. And they actually said they are going to pull back a little bit, but will they? And he didn't talk about it at all. And that's kind of a big deal if we say that we're for, again, peace and unity and not just national but world peace. Didn't talk about it. And then we haven't even talked about the budget. And again, the budget is oh my gosh, it's such an incredible thing. Like, first of all, we have around a $4 trillion national budget, period. And then basically through some of the things that he has proposed, and again, talked about last night, that adds around another 6 trillion on top of it. So we're somewhere in the 10 trillion, which probably is even low. It's probably gonna be a lot more than that, which is, it's monopoly money at this point. Like, it's not real money. There is no money for that. And he talked about some taxes, and he promised that the middle class are not going to pay any additional taxes. But the reality is, even if you raise taxes or took the wealth of everybody in America, that's not going to be enough for $10 trillion. So it's got to go somewhere, and the taxes have to come from somewhere, unless you're just printing it, which just turns into inflation. And again, it's such a crazy thing. And so when you talk about unity, the federal government wants to spend all the money and take all of your money through taxes. I don't know how we unify around that. I don't know what to say about that. But one of the most telling statements I think that we should look at is the "We the People" statement. So again, I mentioned earlier that is our DNA as a country. We the people. We're supposed to be self-governed, and there is a distinction. The self-government that we are supposed to have is by the responsibility of the citizens doing the things they're supposed to do, living in a moral, responsible, duty-filled way, and the government creating a grid that maintains justice and order. So it is not the government telling you all the things you can and cannot do more and more. But that's what we've seen, especially in this last year, is the government saying, you can do this, you cannot do this. And we're not talking, again, just morally. Of course, there should be laws to help govern morally, because there are things you can and cannot do morally. But then when you get into the nitty gritty, can you go to church? Is that a moral issue? I would actually say yes. And actually, I would say that is one of the protected issues under the First Amendment. But the government in many states and in some areas has said, no, you can't do that, right? And there are a bunch more examples of this. But he conflated these things together, and I don't know, I haven't heard anybody mention it yet, but I think it's really important. So I'm going to play this clip, and then we'll talk a little bit more about that. So this is Biden talking about we the people.
Our Constitution opens with the words, as trite as it sounds, we the people. Well, it's time to remember that we the people are the government, you and I. Not some force in a distant capital, not some powerful force that we have no control over. It's us. It's we the people.
I don't even know what to say about that. Again, maybe, to give the benefit of the doubt, maybe he read the teleprompter wrong. I doubt it. I mean, I really think this is one of those moments where he accidentally said the part that you're not supposed to say out loud. He said, if you missed it, we the people, as the Constitution begins, we the people is the government. The government is we the people. And we are the people and we are the government. And again, I tried to draw a distinction earlier that we the people is supposed to be the regular citizens. And they do their part. They have a part. They have a responsibility. We do. We have a responsibility to live right and do the right things and live a moral life. But the people are not the government. The government is supposed to be a separate entity, specifically created to protect rights and to show you the way of responsibilities. To put those together and for him to say, basically, I am we the people and I represent literally the highest office in the government and I am the regular people, is a conflation that is too big to ignore. Because if that is really on the one side what he's thinking, that he's a regular person and he represents the everyman, like he literally is out to lunch, because he's not. A politician who has been in office for 50 years almost is not an everyman person. Like, I hope you understand that. Like, that's not a businessman. That's not a blue collar worker. It's not even a white collar worker. A politician who has been in politics for their entire life is not an everyday person. So that's not a people. That's not a we the people. And then on the other side, if he's saying me as a citizen, as a we the people, not a politician, should give my responsibility, my rights, my perspective of who tells me what to do, or you tell me what to do, or I decide what's right, to give that to the government and let the government control every aspect, that is, I mean, by definition, socialism, like communism, like to say that I don't know what's best for me, so you tell me, the government, what's best for me, because we the people is the government. Like, again, hopefully that's not confusing, but that's a crazy statement right there. Like that is a huge, not democratic republic statement by any definition at all. So again, maybe he spoke wrong. Maybe he read the teleprompter wrong. There were many instances that I mentioned before where he read the teleprompter wrong. I don't think this is one of them because he was very clear in that one. And in some of it, again, if you weren't watching the video, you can tell when he's reading the teleprompter and he does that. In this one, he kind of actually turns and it seems like he's talking more extemporaneously because that's what he believes. He believes he is we the people. He, the leader of the free world, of the government of America, is we the people. Again, I'm kind of harping on that, but it's kind of a big deal. All right, so what do we do with this? I think we got to pray, obviously. And you have to think, I want to say, because again, we're talking about we the people, you have the capacity for your own thoughts and you get to decide what your views are. Don't let the government, don't let the people, don't let me tell you what to think or what to do. You have to come up with these ideas and these decisions. And again, as I point back to Peter, you have to give an answer for the hope that you have. I hope, like Peter, that the answer is a biblical answer based on the truths that have withstood the test of time and are biblical truths. I actually hope that's what you choose. Don't take my word for it. Do your own research. And I'm trying to provide you a service. If you don't have time, if you don't want to do your own research, I'm trying to uncover some of these things for you because I want to help you get to the bottom of all this. Because again, if you just listen and you didn't know better, he sounds like a very nice guy. And you might go, yeah, some great ideas. Let's just go with that. Free stuff for everybody and just spend all you need to spend. Sure, that they say it's there, so there must be money for it. I just want you to spend a little bit of time and think like, is there? How much is $4 or $6 or $10 trillion? That sounds like kind of a lot. It's more than I have. It's more than any government has ever spent in the history of the world, as far as I know. It's kind of a lot. So maybe we should talk about where that's coming from. I want you to figure out your own way, and I want you to vote for things that you believe in. Vote for the right things that help we the people. Don't vote for things that help the government because I hate to say this, but sometimes I don't think the government cares about you. I'm not sure. I think there are people in the government that don't care about you. So when you vote, you should vote for your family, for your community, for the people that you know and love. Like, vote to help the people, not to help the government. You are smart and you can figure these things out, but sometimes it feels like the government thinks you're dumb and just needs to be told what to do. And I don't believe that. I don't believe that's true. I think you can figure this out, and I think I want to give you more credit than they give you credit for, from what I'm seeing. And when Joe Biden says the government is we the people, he's just wrong. Like, period. He's just wrong. And the government is supposed to be there to protect us, to protect our rights, to protect our freedom, not to take more away from us, take more freedom, take more money away from us. That's not what the government is supposed to do. Though this year they've done that in a few ways, and that is a move towards more socialism. And I'll just tell you, I don't like socialism. You probably got that from me, but I don't like it. And everywhere, again, looking at history, literally everywhere I've seen it tried, it has not worked out well. And if it then moves from socialism into communism, it gets really bad, especially bad for those that hold faith, because faith, especially Christianity, is the antithesis to communism, which we've talked about in other episodes. And if you are a person of faith, especially if you work in a church and you feel like these things sound good, socialism's great, communism's great, they've never tried it like we've tried it, just read a little bit about the French Revolution and the pastors, read a little bit about the Russian Revolution, read a little bit about Mao, just read a little bit about these things, about what happened to the people of faith. And I don't know. I hope that will change your mind a little bit. So I do want to end on a different note, because I want you to I want you to have a good taste in your mouth after all this. And so after the State of the Union, Senator Tim Scott got up and he had a a really great and inspirational speech as far as I'm concerned. And instead of some of the what felt to me like false unifying themes, he felt a little bit authentic, and it felt like he really cared about people. It felt like he really cared about people getting along. And I mean, man, he has, just to hear some of the history that he's been through, it's just incredible. Some of the hard life that he has lived, that his family has lived, and yet he prospered through it and is a United States Senator and is an amazing, I think, just human. And I have mad respect for him. So I just wanted to end with a quick clip of something that he said to end it, and then I'll come back in just a moment.
Our best future will not come from Washington schemes or socialist dreams. It will come from you, the American people, Black, Hispanic, white, and Asian, Republican and Democrat, brave police officers in Black neighborhoods. We are not adversaries. We are family. We are all in this together, and we get to live in the greatest country on earth.
I mean, is that not inspirational, right? I just, absolutely love that. And we are not adversaries. We get to live in the greatest country on earth. And it's not, the very first thing that I clipped in there for you is that the government is not going to solve this. I think we have to have our role in it. I think we need to vote. I think we need to get on school boards. I think we need to get into local politics if you have the stomach for it. And I think you need to talk to your friends and families and neighbors about what you can do. And again, for me, and hopefully for you, from a faith-based perspective, following Jesus and expressing that love and hope from Jesus, but also just being part of this world and not shying away for it, because we've kind of hidden in the shadows for too long. And I don't think that has helped us to influence the culture. I think the culture needs a lot of influencing, and we can help do that. So God is still on the throne. Do not lose faith. Do not lose hope. Jesus is in your heart if you let him be in your heart. And we can have a conversation about how to do that if you have questions. But you also have a role to play, and you have a responsibility to play, and you cannot sit idly by anymore and watch this world just turn to garbage. If you believe that we are here for a reason, you have a great opportunity right now to share the hope of Jesus, to share the love with your neighbors and friends, and get involved. So I hope you do something, and make sure your foundation is in Jesus Christ. So God bless you, and as always, keep the faith. As always, thanks for listening and choosing Church Public. If you want, check out churchpublic.com. You can check out Church Public on iTunes, Spotify, Google, and you can go to all the social medias and check me out there. You can also donate if you want to at churchpublic.com/support. Thanks, and God bless.